Thank you for calling. Please leave a message.
They build it, that's where I'm going to go.
By why, I mean what's your purpose?
If you're going to live to be in 2020, you might as well play to be in 2020.
We are one global community.
The digital revolution has just begun.
Sarah, welcome to the Supercharged Entrepreneur Podcast. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Phil. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Very well, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. I really want to talk about your organization. I want to talk about what it is you do. But let's start with a question. What is your mission, Sarah?
I sort of feel like I'm on a mission to tackle manifestations of deprivation and poverty, which sounds like a real mouthful. But actually what that means is I'm just on a mission to change people's lives and to try and make things a little bit better for people who haven't had maybe a good start in life, or maybe life has presented them with some challenges that has they're really not on a level playing field. So yeah, I sort of on this mission to change the world and make it a little bit of a better place if I can. Which
Brilliant.
Sounds corny, I know.
Corny, absolutely, but important, definitely.
Yeah.
So, definitely, Sarah. Let's deep dive into that a little bit first then. So, who are you helping and where did the inspiration come to help?
So we help lots of different people across a whole range of sort of initiatives. So we've supported, for example, young people who are experiencing unemployment. We've supported women and children in domestic violence refuges. We've supported families who are experiencing food and hygiene poverty. We've supported people who suffer from mental health. We've supported people who are experiencing or are at risk of homelessness. So we support lots of different initiatives and lots of different projects, and just really passionate about having an impact on society.
Why is making an impact important to you, Sarah?
So I worked for 27 years delivering public sector frontline services, and I've seen firsthand some of the poverty that people experience. I really wanted to sort of contribute in a different way to some of the challenges we have in our local communities. I also live in a community where we suffer from high levels of unemployment, poor health, deprivation, all of those things. I'm from a very large family, and some of my family members are, part of the problems that we have in society, and some are part of the solutions. And that's what happens when you've got a really big sort of mixed family, And I think my work and my life experience has given me a unique insight into poverty and the actual impact it has on communities. So how do we live as people, as human beings? How do we interact with each other? What some people would see as maybe crime, or some people would see as antisocial behaviour. In some communities where poverty is deep-rooted, that's just how things are. And I'm always saddened when there's this apathy and people just accept that, nothing can change and no one can change it. And I actually don't believe that. I believe if you give people an opportunity, not everyone, but some people will absolutely grasp that with both hands. And I wanted to create those opportunities by building a successfully commercial business that could fund organisations that were really good at tackling some of the issues and challenges communities have.
When you work with people who have had difficult upbringings or maybe challenging upbringings, do you find common trends in these communities? What are the indicators that create this poverty, Sarah?
I think there is it's like, for me, it's always been like a cauldron. So there's a whole host of things that makes our communities really complex. And in terms, when you talk about deprivation, you've got a whole host of things. So you've got multi-generational unemployment, you've got a lack of aspiration, and that's because there's a lack of hope. You've got a lot of people who are told or who feel that they won't amount to anything. And then alongside that, you've got a society where we live in a generation where people want to make lots of money. And you've got people who are sort of separated from the families. You've got families that are broken down. You've got people who are choosing between food or paying electricity and the gas bill. And that means that some people are more susceptible to enter into making money in other ways. So they could enter sort of organised crime units, they could, do a little bit of shoplifting, they could become involved in, selling weed is quite popular. And that sounds quite flippant, but in most communities, people are really just trying to get by. Austerity has hit really hard, which means that people in those circumstances, some people we also find in our communities are suffering from loss of mental health. But actually, when you look at how austerity has impacted over the past 10, 15 years, because austerity has been going on for a long time, some of those grassroots organisations who delivered really valuable services to the community have been cut. So what you've got is you've got this tinderbox of a reduction in prevention and intervention services. Then you've got mounting pressure on families. You've got increasing depths of poverty. And then we've also got this massive skills gap. So if you look within Liverpool City region, we've got growth areas in health and social care and like your biotech, so all the fabulous stuff that's going on in the Knowledge Quarter. And we've got this large group of people who haven't got GCSEs, some can't read. We've got young people who are feeling anxious with mental health, and we've got young people without any qualifications. And there are no bespoke pathways to work for those individuals. And what happens is, for me, there's this whole sort of layered challenges and problems and barriers that are sort of put in the too difficult box. A lot of people in communities who feel that way don't engage with mainstream services. So they don't necessarily go to your authoritarian type services because either they're unsure or they're scared or they don't want to divulge information. So in terms of community services being scaled back, it just compounds the situation.
It really is. It's terrifying, it's fascinating, and it's upsetting, I guess, all in the same breath, Sarah, isn't it? Because, we're supposed to be living in a 21st century Western world. And, you and I are both from the Liverpool area. And we see it, every day. There's certain parts of our community that are really, really poor and are really struggling. And one of the things that I'm sure you reflect upon a lot is the balance between understanding how we got to where we are now and striving for solutions to overcome it. And I think you've touched on both those things already. For me, one thing I'd just love to pick your brains on, Sarah, is the empathy required to really understand a family that is, as you say, multi-generational unemployed or multi-generational unskilled or uneducated. How hard it is, or maybe let's rephrase the question, Sarah, how hard is it to break that cycle?
In some cases, it's really difficult because some people choose it as a way of life. And in some cases, it's not difficult at all. And one thing that I accept, certainly as someone who's sort of trying to make change, is, you can't help everybody, but even if you only help 5, 10, 20 people, that has a massive ripple effect because it, impacts on their families, their children, their neighbourhoods and their communities. It also depends the complex needs of people. So, as I said before, I've got a large family. Within that family, there are some who are entrepreneurs. I found a really interesting dynamic in my own family. So, in a really crude way, all the girls tend to go out to work, whether it be part-time, full-time. And then the lads in our family, if you like, have got dependent on some drink, some drugs, some have been through the prison system, and some work as well. But it's this whole mixture of that experience of sort of, if you lose a family member to dependency, it's a sort of different type of grief. And it's really strange. So I often sort of, feel surrounded by these types of families as well. And you're sort of thinking, well, what would have made a difference? How would things have made a difference? And in some cases, it wouldn't make a difference, but in other cases it would, because as individuals, we all have a choice, but you have to have something to choose from. And if there's no choice, and if there's no alternative route ways to take, and the only route way is either crime or you might sort of fall into a habit where you're drinking, none of them are really good for you. So, it is difficult sometimes, and sometimes, you can't help people, but equally you can.
Definitely. I wanted to make a point, Sarah, and I hope this is taken in the manner it's intended by the listeners. My dad has always says to me, work ethic is the most important thing you can have. And I have a voracious work ethic. And I'm not going to lie, it comes from my dad. And then I started to look at my dad and think, well, why has he got that work ethic? And I realized, looking at my granddad, who was a bricklayer for 40, 50 years, he had an incredible work ethic. And yet when you go back to my granddad's upbringing, this is in the 20s and 30s, he said we would eat maybe once a day. We didn't have shoes until we were 7, 8, 9, 10. We'd go to school with newspapers tied up with string until they were at least 10, 11, 12, 13. And that's real poverty. That's like, proper poverty. But then I reflect back and I think, do you know what? We as a family were incredibly lucky because the men in the family had an incredible work ethic and a positive outlook on life. And I think that's what lots of these families perhaps are currently living in poverty struggle with. And you mentioned it before, Sarah, about aspiration. And if you haven't got the peers around you to aspire you and to push you forward and to set the example, you've got no benchmark, have you, to look up to?
Yeah, and it's lack of opportunity as well. I mean, I think one of the things that has changed, which is quite a stark difference, is that now you can have both two people in a household going to work full time and still having to access a food bank. So it's almost as if the level of pay that people receive, this isn't just about people who are unemployed, sitting around doing nothing. We have more in work families living in poverty than ever before. So when you actually look at a community and you look at the dynamics of that community, and you've got number one household, they're all working but they're accessing food banks. Number two, stable income, they're just getting by. House number three might be doing well. Number four might be a household where there's like 7th, 8th generational unemployment. Number five, you might have people going to prison. Number 6, you might have, people suffering from mental health. If you take that one street and you look at each individual house, you sort of begin to look at these are the dynamics of the communities. And one thing that struck me is during the last 10 years, deprivation across the Liverpool City region has increased. And I personally believe that we can't tackle deprivation and inequality without working with some of those young people of the future, some of those young people and families who are furthest away from the job market, and giving them the skills, the confidence to go out, secure employment and become financially independent. And sometimes I feel that because we live in a political world, that stuff takes years to change, and we sometimes go for the easy win. But as a result of that, we've got this increase in deprivation. So there are things that I believe around poverty should be apolitical. It's not a political agenda. It's, we need to, as a country, regardless of your politics, people shouldn't be going hungry and children shouldn't be living in poverty. And that's something that we should be proud of as a country striving towards. So there are all these complexities in communities, and I'd sort of had this 27 years frontline public sector experience, and then I'd had experience in the third sector, which, was an eye-opener, because I found that the third sector just wasn't very charitable. So the third sector has got a number of organisations, lead organisations, who are funded, and because they're funded and because funded is reduced, it's extremely competitive. It's extremely, what you'd call in Liverpool, proper clicky. And, it's ruthless. And I'd sort of gone through my life looking at all this and sort of on the sidelines and working with strategic partnerships and writing neighbourhood plans, and thought, actually, there's a way that I could influence and do things differently. And that would be to try to set up a business that would self-sustain commercially and reinvest profits into some of this stuff that I'm really, really passionate about. And I started on that journey 6 years ago, and we've done some great things. We're a very, very small team. We've done some really, really good things, and I'm really, really proud of it. And we've actually helped in different ways, like directly helped thousands of people. And I just think to myself, do you know what? That's really good, that, despite the white noise, despite, people sort of maybe not embracing what you do. And we find that not everyone embraces what we do, because maybe they don't understand it, or maybe they're skeptical. For a lot of the time, people don't like it because it's seen as competition of how you do things, and probably not many people speak about that side of things. But actually, that's the reality of being an entrepreneur. So my position, I think, is really different. So commercially business, I work in a male-dominated environment. I work in an environment that's extremely competitive, and I have to handle sort of the competition. I have to handle the networks that I come across. I work really as a boys network, all of that type of thing. So I have that to deal with. And then we have the stuff that we do with the social stuff, and it's the politics of, we're sort of giving grants, we're funding things, we're doing things that we're passionate about. And that comes with its own politics of sort of being accepted within the third sector, because, it's really interesting having that overview of how everything works. And I'm not sure many people have that. But the beauty of what we do is, because it is in technically my company's money, we can invest where and how we want to, which means that, if we're really passionate about child poverty, we will we'll get some work, and we'll say, let's invest some money into that. That's really helping kids who are hungry. Or what can we do that has impact over a longer period of time? Or, look at these domestic violence issues. So, I think what we do is really important, and we're the only pro-social business in the Northwest, certainly in the Liverpool City region, potentially in the UK. So a pro-social business is a business that's born, driven from purpose, and spends its money in a way that benefits society. And I think we can hang our hat on that hook.
There's so many interesting points about entrepreneurship there that we can unpack, and I'm just going to go through a few of them if you don't mind, Sarah, because I'd love to get your thoughts on them.
Yeah.
You talked about being an entrepreneur allows you to solve problems. You talked about the benefits of being private and sort of unencumbered by maybe investors or by government regulation, gives you that freedom to invest as you want. You talked a lot about being in a male-dominated world. You talked about the importance of understanding competition and the competitive landscape. You talked a lot about politics, and I think I completely agree with you that poverty should be an apolitical issue. And I think the overall kind of question I want to move on to next is, how do you balance the passion and what you're trying to achieve with the business with commerciality? How do you go about that on a practical day-to-day basis, Sarah?
So hard. So for me, it's like I've had 6 years of literally, so the conversation we've just had, Phil, about poverty, speak to a client who's normally the public sector, and I'm saying, you can buy from this shop online, and it might be £1 cheaper. It might be the same price, we might be cheaper. Or you can buy from us, and if you give us £10, £2.50 of that will be set aside, and then we're going to invest that into your local area, and we're going to help you as the public sector tackle some of these issues in communities that cost you billions of pounds. So each time we put somebody into work, there's a saving on public sector frontline services. Each time we divert someone from crime. So actually, our costs not only pay for themselves, but they have impact way beyond a capital project, a building's being built or something's being refurbished. And that has a massive saving. And sometimes I come after the meetings and I want to cry, because I'll be sitting in front of a capital and estates person who'll say, I don't care about that, we just want cheap. And I'm sort of coming from the point of view where I really, really need to win a contract, but I'm also really angry because I've been a senior executive in the public sector, and I know that's not how you should be thinking. So I've had to learn to have those conversations in a sensitive way that doesn't potentially insult a client, but can actually say, look, these are the added benefits that you get. You get used to having phone calls ignored, emails ignored, but that's just business to business. And sometimes I come out of those meetings and my heart sings, because I've met with a client who goes, this is fantastic. Nobody ever talks to us about this stuff, and yet we're going to work with you. But importantly, what I've got is, I've got over 30 years experience of showing that I have delivered these projects for the public sector. I understand what communities need, and we will invest in this, and it will bring this, and the impact on you will be this. So I have to act, I have to negotiate commercial rates, I have to do everything a business does. We've literally we don't do cold call and we don't do sales. We've grown our business by reputation, and that was something that it was intentional for me. And because I wanted us to be positioned for our social value and our impact, and we are there. We are there. The public sector come to us, but I still have work, because it's construction services that we sell. I'm still working in this arena where, people don't understand. So it's a constant winning of hearts and minds, showing the benefits to the public sector, showing how we can help them transform their communities, being commercially competitive, understanding how the competitors operate, understanding the construction industry, and then picking through the social value language. So social value is spoken about everywhere now. I'd say 70% of it is smoke and mirrors. So we've also taken the route way of getting our sort of social value audited independently, so we can prove what we deliver is tangible. So we're not just saying, oh, we deliver £30 social return on investment per pound you spent, when actually, when you're working around homelessness, it's probably £4.50 per pound. So we have to find a way of cutting through that white noise, and how we've done that is we've put our money where our values are. We've put our money into these projects that are changing society, and we've done it from day one. So we've got a proven track record. We're always going to be faced with, we had a situation this week where Somebody said, we're going to purchase goods from a competitor because it's free. And we said, you do know it's not free. You do know that the costs are just hidden. Yeah, but on paper it's free. So we'll always have those days. Now, as an entrepreneur, that's disappointing. As a taxpayer, it's infuriating. As somebody who has worked in the public sector and delivered amazing public sector sort of projects right across the country, it's absolutely infuriating, you know. But there are things that I can change and things that I can't, and I try to change the things that are within my control to change. And we're doing that, and we've been doing it for 6 years. So we're no different than a B2B, you know, business to business. We very much conduct ourselves like a public sector organisation because we haven't lost sight that that's who we work for. Where there's always a temptation to position yourself amongst contractors who can introduce you to clients, but you know, we work for the public sector. We're there to serve communities, so we're very different from our competitors. But again, you know, it's like any other business. We have to sell ourselves, and sometimes it's great, and sometimes we don't win a contract. But
I hear you. I really do hear you, Sarah, and there's so much to reflect on in what you just said. But I'd like to touch on one of the points around maybe gender inequality and what it's like to be a female entrepreneur, not only in a male-dominated world of entrepreneurship, but also a sector-dominated world of construction. What experiences have you had, and what lessons have you learnt?
Yeah, so I've had people who've tried to bully me a little bit. I've had people who have, you know, I don't go on golf days because I don't play the golf. I don't go out drinking with contractors at the large events, so I don't put myself out there as to say, but I don't want to. That's my choice. So then you sort of get treated like, she doesn't really engage with us, but actually it's all built on our values and our ethics, and you know, I personally don't feel that my way of conducting business is a professional way of conducting business. So that's something that I'm actually quite proud of, because I'm quite capable of like standing up for myself. So actually, the fact that I am a confident person has allowed me to stand up to individuals who's maybe tried to bully me a little bit. I have got the confidence to say, well, actually, you know what, I'm too busy, you know, saving lives to go and play golf all day. Plus, it's not in line with our values or what we do. But yeah, it's really difficult. What really annoys me is there will be males who I meet with on a regular basis who, like, I can tell they don't listen to a word I say. I go to meetings and they'll speak to a male counterpart, or I've got sort of people who think, well, you can speak to the women in the business. And then, you know, obviously it is sort of everyday sexism, which is just sort of, it's ingrained everywhere. It's the culture. A lot of people tend to think that they know better than me, but actually, I remember one which was quite funny. I met with a consultant, God, probably old enough to be his mum, and he sort of threw a challenge down with me about what I knew about communities and social value. So I listed off a reel of accolades and awards I've won, and I was like, I really didn't want to embarrass you there, but you didn't put me in much of a position, because, you know, I'm not here talking the talk. I actually walk the walk. So I try not to sort of, you know, antagonize people, but sometimes I have to challenge some of those sorts of comments, have to challenge some people's behaviours, and I have to challenge how people have spoken to me, quite like disrespectful. So it's something that any woman working in a male dominant environment, and some of it, you know, it's not intentional, it's unconscious, you know. Without disrespect, a lot of the males I work with are older males, so maybe they think like a daughter, like a niece. What I have found really strange, which I do not think a man would be asked, I have sat in meetings and people have said to me, and how much money are you making out of this? like literally have come out and said, and how much money are you going to make? So my experience has been really, really interesting. It's a bit like water off a duck's back, and I'll tell you why. Prior to this, I worked in Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service, and I managed 150 firefighters. So I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever, Bill.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
This is how it's really going to be. This is how we're really going to do things. And I'll let you have that one, but don't speak to me like that again, or you've had it. So it's really, really interesting. And for me, equality has to be about everybody. And equality in terms of gender has to be about all women, not just a few women, not just the women that make the most noise, not just the women that, you know, we're the experts, we're this. It has to be about Sharon, who's just gone the home and bargain, Brenda, who's just popping the chippy, Maria is in Tesco, Sarah, who's running a framework. It has to be about all women, because actually, you know, women are amazing, aren't they? You know, the housekeepers, the mothers, the sisters, you know, even, you know, I can't imagine being a full-time mum, how hard that job is.
Very.
So, you know,
very hard.
Women are crucial to society. So yeah, some days are a little bit tough, but some days are great, you know. And I think to balance that out, I have had some great male mentors in my career. I've had some great male supporters, great male, you know, executives who said, this is great. We want to work with you. We love your vision. But, you know, it's like anything, you take the good with the bad.
You do. You really do. I think you're a shining example as an entrepreneur, Sarah. And I think you're a shining example for Liverpool City Region. And I hope this doesn't sound in any way condescending, because I genuinely don't mean it. But, you know, thank you for your contribution. Thank you for the efforts that you've put in. And thank you for the sacrifice, because do you know what? We need more entrepreneurs out there who genuinely understand how to balance commerciality with a pro-social attitude. And it's really made me think hard, this conversation about what I'm doing and how I can contribute. And there's so many lessons there. You know, I'm reading off some of my notes here about humility, empathy, commerciality, the benefits of having a mentor, the benefits of having a balanced workforce to get a more balanced perspective on the world. There's so many invaluable lessons for entrepreneurs and business leaders. And I think, just to finish off on that point and perhaps bring the conversation to a close, Sarah, one of the most important things we can do to challenge inequality and to create a more fair society is to have these conversations, you know, to bring it to the fore and to make it part of what they call public discourse.
Definitely.
Everybody, men and women, should talk about it, shouldn't they?
Yeah, and everybody's experience is different, and everybody is affected differently, I think. So I think that I'm quite resilient. Some people in the industry that I work in might have said it's not for them, and that's okay. You're not, if you try something and don't like it, it doesn't mean you failed. Go and do something that really makes you happy. And, you know, I potentially won't do this forever. You know, I might go and do something else that really ignites my passion. But I think it's recognising everybody's individuality as well. You know, we all have our, you know, I'm sure people sit there and will listen to this and think, I can't stand her. She's an absolute horror, right? Because we all have our good points and our bad points. You know, we all have our like weaknesses. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because you're up, you're out, you're having a go. You know, we're up, we're having a go, and to add to that, we're making a difference, and that's what drives me and my team. And I think it's important. The team is important. So my team love what we do. So my team said to me the other day, this time last year, said when we went into lockdown and everyone was like working from home, and you went, actually, we're not going to do that. We're going to set up a charity for kids in care. He said, and we were looking at you thinking, God, we hate you. He said, now 12 months in, we're like all passionate about these kids who've got no families. We're on the journey with them. We've created like a shop for them. We're getting them into work. We're supporting them, and we love it. We absolutely love it, and I think that's the difference, isn't it? The team are bought in. The team are bought in, and absolutely, when we sleep out for the homeless and when we sponsor the Manchester Sleep Out, for example, the team sleep out with us. It's those things that my team, they work in our organisation because of the social as well as the commercial.
Do you know what, Sarah? I'm gonna disagree with you very slightly there. I think your team work for your organisation because of you. I think you're the vision, you're the drive, and it wouldn't happen without you. And that is a classic entrepreneurial trait, is to have a vision, to have a clear why, and then to get other people on board with this journey. And that's why I love talking to people like you, Sarah, because I think sometimes we as entrepreneurs don't realize the impact we have on people closest to us, like our team.
Do you know what I think's really weird? Is that people would refer to what I do as entrepreneurial or an entrepreneur. I think it's really mad. Like, my sister's got a sandwich shop, and she's run suspended coffees for 10 years. So our community has paid it forward for food and drink for 10 years, and that food gets delivered via the Paper Cup project on the streets of Liverpool for the homeless and stuff. And I go, my sister's an entrepreneur. But in a way, I suppose because of my mindset, this has been another labour of love, another project. So I find it really strange. People say, it's an entrepreneur type of thing.
No, you're 100% an entrepreneur. And if for nothing else, Sarah, for me, an entrepreneur is anybody who sees a problem, wants to solve it, and then has a vision on how they're going to solve it. So whether you're running a sandwich shop, whether you're running a pro-social construction framework, or whether you're running, I don't know, whatever I do, a digital creative business, if you're trying to solve that problem, if you're trying to help people, if you're trying to create something of value in the world, I think that's what entrepreneurship is. And I'm a huge fan of encouraging people to become entrepreneurs and to think entrepreneurially. And I think there's so many lessons from today, Sarah, that I just wanted to thank you for. And I think it's been a really fascinating talk. Final question, two-parted question, if you don't mind, Sarah. Who do you help? Who do you want to contact you, and how can they do that?
Okay, so at the moment we've launched a project in Liverpool city centre called Thrive, and it's a cafe. No, it's not. It's a coffee shop. So it's a coffee shop, but it's not open to the public. The only people that use the space are support workers, social workers, youth offending teams, to hold meetings with young people who are either leaving the care system or who've got criminal records and who are furthest away and need the young people who need the most help. So we've been putting a call to action out. We're looking for employers to help us in terms of delivering interactive career sessions. So we have employers zooming in and speaking to these cohorts of young people about what it's like to be a police officer, a hairdresser, a gardener, an entrepreneur, a business development manager, whatever it is. We're looking for employers who might give them some interview skills, some opportunities. But we're looking as well to help sustain it moving forward. We've got sponsorship packages, and one is you can pay £50 a month, and that pays for all the hot drinks and refreshments for the young people. Now, we launched this in COVID because we felt it was really needed. We've now got seven of those care experienced and young offenders into employment. We've had 215 young people log on to our interactive career sessions. We've had 226 visitors to the coffee shop. We've had just 1,162 young people access our YouTube sessions, which is all talking about careers. We've got 4 young people getting mentors. We've referred 2 young people for counselling because of the trauma that they've experienced. And if you want to tackle deprivation, if you want to build an inclusive economy, then you can do that by helping us at Thrive, because we want to use this project to really tackle that sort of deprivation.
Okay, I'm going to give the URL out because I think it's really important. So that's thrive-cic.co.uk. And your main business is rise-framework.com, which is the construction framework. I definitely encourage people to go and check it out if you are looking to get involved in that area. I think you've got some fantastic causes you're doing there, Sarah. So thank you ever so much for your time and for your contribution. And I really hope people go and check out the website and get involved in what you're going to do.
Thanks so much for your time, Phil. Appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Have a great day. Thanks, Sarah.
You too, Phil. Thank you.